For taking out time today. Today's topic is faith, COVID-19 and climate action. It's a weird combination, as some may think, but it's much more related than you think. And so the next hour, we'll see myself and the guests we have today explore this topic a little bit more and take benefit and some much needed wisdom from our fantastic panel today. Now, before we begin, just some basic housekeeping rules. Please can everybody keep their microphones on mute. There won't be an opportunity for people to speak as yet, but we also don't want people to interfere with the conversations, because the way the technical side on Zoom works, that whenever somebody talks, it cuts the other speaker off, and we want to avoid that. If you have cameras, please do switch them on. You don't have to, it's not an obligation, but having them switched on allows us to feel alive and allows us to feel like we're talking to a very live audience and to see the diverse range of people who have joined today's webinar. So please do that if you can. We encourage questions, so please do throughout the conversation. If anything comes to mind or you want to ask something to the panelists, there's a chat section at the bottom of the screen. Please click on it and put in your questions, and somebody from Faith for the Climate will pick it up, or I will pick it up and we'll ask them. And please don't be offended if we don't have enough time to go through all the questions. And at some point in the coming days, a recording of this webinar will also become available on our website. And so please do look out for the tweets or emails, or just go on our website. Please do that. Just gonna put up a little screen and just to tell you a little bit about Faith for the Climate. Give me a second. Okay, so just to tell you a little bit about Faith for the Climate, it's a national network of organizations and individuals who are committed to faith-based climate action. It's a multi-faith group, and the organization, the network, makes space for a variety of positions and views as long as they're committed to climate action. And you can read a lot more about Faith for the Climate by going to their website, which is www.faithfortheclimate.org.uk. I know I've been a big fan of Faith for the Climate because where I feel Faith for the Climate's unique selling point is that it's not out to make a big name for itself. It's not necessarily there to make itself look like an umbrella organization. It's very much committed to giving a voice to different people and to different organizations, whether they're individuals or whether they're part of a larger group, to capacity build them or give them a voice around the table. So it's definitely worth an organization getting involved in, and they've been working for years, and now they're very much at the forefront of leading the faith-based voice for COP26. You can get more on our website. You can also please do follow us on Twitter. It's at FFTC Network. And also subscribe to the monthly newsletter. There's some amazing, it's full of rich content from all sorts of faiths and what they're doing. And every month we have a different theme. Last month was around Green Ramadan. This month is around Buddhist Action Month. Something we'll be exploring a little bit more after this. And it wouldn't be true to our faith-based practices if we don't ask for donations. So there's a link on the screen, which Shannon, the coordinator, will put up. We're reliant on, well, we're not completely reliant, but with anything, we do rely on people to contribute towards our work. You know, so far, the network is very grateful to organizations like Green Faith, like the Gulbenkian, Religions for Peace, Christian Aid, CAFOD, Tear Fund, Islamic Relief, British Quakers, the Bridge at Waterloo, who have provided support in in-kind donations or through financial, regular financial support. But it also highlights that these organizations are very committed and they feel a sense of responsibility to support a network like this and to be able to, for faith organizations to go out and do the work that they're doing. So please do get involved in Faith for the Climate and do look at other ways in how you can do things. Okay, so I want to move on to my guests now. I have two wonderful guests with me today. I have Rabbi Jeffrey Newman from Extinction, Rebellion, Jews, and I have Olivia Fuchs from EcoDharma, who's from the Buddhist faith. And I'm not going to go through their bios in detail. It's on our website and it will be posted on the chat. But I'm not lying if when I tell you that they have hearts the size of the universe. I've got to know them over the past couple of years, and I'm so in awe and inspired by their personalities and their personal commitments to preserving the integrity of Mother Earth. You know, they are deeply spiritual people. They're full of love, they're full of compassion, they're full of enthusiasm and energy. And I know, for a fact that they're feeling very uncomfortable with me saying all these things and bigging them up. And, you know, it's a testimony of their humility. And, you know, I'm not going to shy away from saying that. So thank you for being our panelists, and I look forward to speaking to them. Now, there's no doubt that the spread of COVID-19 has come with tragic consequences for vulnerable communities around the globe. And this disease has had a devastating impact on many communities. I mean, 40,000 deaths, more than 40,000 deaths in this country, and many more throughout the world. So before we begin, I want to take out a minute silence in honor and memory of all those who have lost their lives and others who have been impacted by this pandemic. So you can use this time to either make a prayer or to reflect, or just have a moment silence, however you feel free, you wish. Thank you. And, you know, we pray that, you know, for all those who have suffered and who are hurt, who are still suffering, that God brings some form of ease and patience into their lives and makes it easier for them. Okay, now, it goes without saying that none of us want to see deaths and hardships that have resulted. And there have been many difficulties and there have been all sorts. But this time, the last 3 months, has given us a huge amount of time to reflect and ponder. And the one thing we've seen conversations a lot is around environment, nature. I know, for instance, we've been hearing about it in the news. I know I have my own friends who normally keep telling me, I keep banging on about the environment. I'm suddenly seeing them post selfies of them walking near the canal or sitting with nature. So nature now has become at the forefront of people's minds. So I want to do a quick poll, and I want to ask everyone whether everybody feels that how do you feel that the restrictions and lockdown measures have been good for the environment? So I'm just going to launch a quick poll, and it gives us a sense of understanding of what people are feeling about it. So I'll give you around 30 seconds. Okay, I think we can share the results with everybody. Can everybody see that? So 94%, the vast majority of us all feel that restrictions and lockdown measures have been good for the environment. Well, 6% feel that it hasn't. Okay, interesting. We'll go to that in a little while. Okay, now worrying though that the outlook as we emerge from the restrictions is pretty bleak, unfortunately. We seem to be going back to business as usual. And if we are to reach net zero carbon emissions by 2050 or sooner, and have any hopes of limiting the rising global average temperatures to a level that will not cause a societal catastrophe, we have to reach that level of reduction in carbon emissions every year. It has to reduce. Now, quite often people don't realize that COVID-19 has emerged from some of the same factors that are driving climate change, particularly deforestation, loss of habitat for wildlife, urbanization, consumption of bushmeat, wet markets. And if we don't reverse those trends, we'll be facing more pandemics in the future. So even worse, I find that the current post-COVID stimulus measures that we're seeing now, which are intended to restart our economies, which also, I must add that they're crucial to our current livelihoods, will have a significant and lasting negative impact on the environment. And that's according to a number of studies. So I suppose this is where I now want to bring in, my first guest, Rabbi Newman. So Rabbi Newman, I want to ask you, what are your reflections on what lessons there are to be learned from the current COVID crisis? Can it put us in a better position to tackle climate change and to do climate action?
Well, for me, Kamran, first of all, what an amazing pleasure and opportunity it is to be with everyone. And I think that this is not unimportant. I think one of the key elements has been a recognition of the potential for good of technology. We would not have been able to have had a meeting like this with people from Birmingham, Ramsgate, Shrewsbury, Mid Wales, and those are only the ones that I picked up, together without travel, without time. Let's recognize a small amount of miracle that has come about and that is going to remain with us and change the world. Nevertheless, I also, in what you said, Kamran, recognize the positives of nature, of the time that we've had, of the recognition of space, and the negative of getting back to business as usual as fast as we can possibly rush. Those two elements are immediately in my mind. I'll mention one other positive, which has happened in my road. I've lived on the same road for 48 years. And at the same time, it's the first time that we've had a sense of real neighborliness and friendliness and people helping one another. It's been remarkable. We clapped for the NHS on Thursday evenings. And even more remarkably, we have a beautiful park just down the road. On last Sunday, we had a demonstration in the park. We've never had a demonstration in the park before. We had about 150 to 200 people, and it was Black Lives Matter. And there is, to me, a really central relationship and connection between both environment, pandemic, the issues we're talking about and thinking about, and the recognition that, yes, I'm going to put them together, that all lives matter, but we'll start with Black Lives Matter, because that's, as well as women's lives matter, are elements that have been sometimes lost in a very patriarchal society. So I think that there are elements, but I think that at this moment, it seems that the loss of the positives of the stop, the global stop, the gift that we have been given are greater than what we're going to learn. However, I think that's short term. I think in the longer term, there is a possibility that other quite deep factors may emerge from where we have been in the last 2 or 3 months, and it's not finished. I suppose another thing to recognize, it's not finished.
And I want to bring in, ask you around the role of faith. Now most of us are inspired by a faith. Our planet is full of people of faith. You know, it's estimated that around 80% of the global population follow some form of faith. And there's no doubt that our respective faiths are rich in their teachings on care for the planet, and there's an abundance of both spiritual and practical lessons on what our relationship should be with the earth. However, I'll be honest, I'm a little bit skeptical too, because I'm not fully convinced here that people of faith are playing their full roles in tackling climate action. And whilst I understand I'm generalizing here, but my own experiences highlight to me that influential faith leaders or faith organizations don't take climate action so seriously, or they haven't understood where COVID-19 has come from, or why COVID-19 is an environmental disease. I mean, I can give you an example with our faith places now suddenly all wanting to open, and rightly so, but all the measures they're putting in place are very short term, but they're not looking at what we can do in the long term to stop these kind of pandemics happening again. So I want to ask you, as a faith leader yourself and somebody who is very inspirational to many people, I'd like to hear your analysis of the role of faith and faith leaders. Is it working? Do you think they can or they will make a difference? Have we failed, or are we failing, or do we have a role to play?
I think I want to start, Kamran, by acknowledging just how much I have and do gain from you. You, just flicking my screen so I can see you, but you constantly remind me of that reality that you've just brought up, that there is a real need for us continually to work in and with our own faith traditions. And I failed. I absolutely know that the Jewish community has not taken a real role. It has, as a community, not recognized its responsibility, its potential. And though there are pockets, I mean, I noticed that the Buddhist group, BAM, Buddhist Action Month, acknowledges Mitzvah Day as having been an inspiration. Well, that's lovely. And Mitzvah Day has taken the environment as a key theme in Mitzvah Day, but it hasn't changed the community. So I think we've got a very long way to go. However, I also want to make a difference. And the difference is this: I think that we don't need and mustn't just think of faith in relationship to faiths. There is a distinction. Faith is something that provides for probably most people on this call the resilience, the personal determination, the foundation of who we are and how we live. And that no doubt relates to the faith in which we practice, or perhaps we were brought up in, or whatever. But it is also something different from religious community, which may be supportive or not, may be helpful or not, but it's certainly not the same thing. And I know how when I meet people of faith, it doesn't matter whether they are Christian or Muslim or Jewish or of no faith whatsoever, there is a shared recognition, and that is supportive and collaborative, and we work together. That's really important to me, and it sustains me.
Yeah, that reminds me of something Dr. Fazlun Khalid, who's the founder for the Islamic Foundation for Environmental and Ecological Sciences. And somebody asked him a question who's quite critical of the role of faith, and what does faith really bring to this? And and he responded by saying, look, let's save the planet first together, and then we can argue and debate about God later. And I think that's so important, because the one thing we all share is the air we breathe, the water we drink, the food we eat, everything. That's the one common interest we all have. You mentioned obviously about faith and the difference between faiths and faith groups and faith organizations. And it can be very demotivating. I know I can find working with faith groups demotivating, and at the same time working with people of faith can be quite motivating. So how do you keep how do you keep the motivation for people to keep fighting the good fight without losing heart?
Sorry, I've just got an interruption. I can't do it at this minute. Sorry. Well, I think it's really important to have a wife, and I think it's really important to have a little bit of humour in one's life. So maybe that's where I'll start. And the question, I think, well, I'm sure that it's not up to us to save the planet. It was just a little phrase that I picked up in what you said. We can't. We do what we can, where we are, in our own small ways. We share with and learn with one another, and we act as best as we can with whatever the immediate and the next tasks set before us are about. I don't know whether that's an answer to your question, because I a bit lost the question in the moment of the knock upon the door, but that's as much as I need or can say at this moment.
Okay, so I'll ask you about your own personal experience, and I want to ask you about your role with XR Jews and the role and your faith-inspired action, which you took I think it was just outside Trafalgar Square. And it was a very beautiful and telling moment in which you made a very passionate stand against government policies and against what's happening. Tell us, if you can tell us all about why was this moment so important to you, for you to take action? And do you feel that you've made your point well, or do you need to continue making your point?
I absolutely no doubt that this is continued work. I was there with XR Jews, as you say, and that's for me a fantastic group of young people who support and inspire me. And it's our future together that we're working on. Young people, they're probably in their 20s and early 30s, and I think of my own grandchildren who are much, much, much younger, and the planet is going to be a different place. And COVID-19 is one of so many tests that we're all going to have to face. So this is a demonstration of the systemic nature of the issues that we are now facing as a global community. I came to a moment, I'd known back in the previous April, when I'd been involved in XR, that Extinction Rebellion, that it was likely I was going to need to be arrested. A ridiculous statement, but on the other hand, I'm in my 70s, and I am freer to be able to do what I believe in. I just didn't know when it was going to be, but at that moment, that's what happened. And I realized in retrospect, it was like an initiation. It was something I needed to do because I was scared of it. And in fact, what turned out was that first, there was nothing I needed to have been frightened of. I was amazingly, well treated, and I learned. And two other things to say. One is that on this last Shabbat, I got a final letter from the police saying that I'm not going to be charged. I spoke to a friend, should I sue them? Because they put down on this piece of paper, I'm not going to be charged for insufficient evidence. Well, having been videoed and the video shown all over the world, and the numbers of police arresting me and everything about it, I thought it was a bit disingenuous. And there was another statement they could have said on the piece of paper, which it wasn't in the public interest. And I think that's probably much more true. They didn't want more publicity that could be negative than if they hadn't, did charge me and I had to go to court. But much more important, or no, not much more important, what happened was that I read just before I was arrested, and they allowed me to read it, a little statement from Extinction Rebellion, which is absolutely superb. And it's just possible, even maybe in that last minute that you're giving to me, because it won't take a minute to read it, I might read that statement because it's really beautiful about our responsibility to the planet and our love for the planet and for one another.
Thank you, Jeff. That's really interesting. And I suppose my last question for this section leads on exactly to what you're saying. So one of the biggest criticisms of action is people say nobody listens. You sign petitions, it doesn't get anywhere. You go on demonstrations, it doesn't get anywhere. You get arrested and it's just fobbed off. So you don't feel that what you've done has gone anywhere. And I suppose you mentioned earlier Black Lives Matters. And that campaign is a very current example of people not listening or action not being taken. I mean, we're now, ethnic minorities and indeed Black people have been calling for equal rights and justice for centuries, yet here we are. And do you think calling for climate action, we're going down the same route where nobody listens? And how can what is it we need to do to tie into other human rights and justice movements to make sure that we're all singing from the same hymn sheet?
It's up to us to do the work, but the results are in God's hands. And only one other thing, this sort of collaboration, this sort of being together, I think it is having an effect, and a small effect. It's so much further to go. But let's keep trucking on. There are some good songs like that.
Thank you, Rabbi Newman. That was beautiful, and there's so much to ponder on and so much to reflect on and to take on. We could be talking to you for a lot longer. I will invite anybody in the audience, our participants. Please do, if you have any questions for Rabbi Newman, please do put them in, and I'll ask the Rabbi afterwards. Okay, I'd now like to move on to our next guest, Olivia Fuchs, who's a steering group member of Faith for the Climate. She's also part of the Network for Buddhist Organizations, and someone who I've been working with quite closely in the past year. Olivia, I want to start off by asking the exact same question I started off with Rabbi Newman. What are your reflections on what lessons there are to be learned from the current COVID crisis? And how can it put us in a better position to tackle climate change?
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much, and welcome to everybody. And thank you, Jeff, for all your amazing experience, and Cameron for your wonderful introductions. I just want to say I'm the newbie here. I really feel that there are a lot of people here from the Buddhist community who probably have been doing this for much longer than me, and who have much more experience and much more knowledge. But I'm here as the coordinator of the EcoDharma network, which I'll talk about a little bit later as well. So in answer to your question, Cameron, thank you. I think this COVID has given us a space of uncertainty. And in Buddhist philosophy, that's always, we always talk about everything is change. The Buddha always said everything is constantly changing. So we're sort of aware of that, but often we don't really respond to it. And I think we've all been put into this space of uncertainty. And I'm always then reminded of the Chinese kanji character for crisis, which means, I'm sure you again will know it, but it means both danger and opportunity. And I think the danger, as Jeff has already said, is that we just go back to same old, same as, and try and recoup as much as we can and do the, go back to normal, whatever normal might have been in the first place. But the opportunity is also huge, that this is a window of opportunity. Sometimes crises or changes like that, or sort of breaks in the way we do things normally, create this opportunity. And I think together with Black Lives Matter and the understanding about climate and about justice and the importance of justice and about regeneration, the Green New Deal, there are so many different ways of looking at this, but I think we are all changing. We are awakening, and some of us have been aware of these things, but this is an opportunity to go deeper. So for me, it's been an opportunity to read more, to educate myself more, to connect with other people more. I think it's an opportunity to deepen our resilience. And again, a bit like Jeff already said, I think there are going to be many more shocks to come. And in a way, we need to think, what do we want to strengthen about who we are and what we do? And what do we want to discard? And also on a personal level, what is important to me? What is my deeper purpose? What do I want to keep and what do I want to just let go of? So I think there's sort of personal things like that. And then on a collective level, I think, one, it's very hard because we can't take to the streets in the same way, although brilliantly the young people in Black Lives Matter, have still been doing it. And there's, of course, still protests. But things like Extinction Rebellion and other protests have slightly been curtailed. But I think maybe it's also good for us to, one, take our communities online like we are doing here, and to reconnect with, and maybe to widen our network with people who may not have come to a meeting or to a event beforehand, and to widen our networks not only nationally but also internationally. So I think it's an opportunity to create networks and community, and to learn, to really believe in what we want to learn for the future, and maybe to create our future as well. And that would be my thinking as well, is what future do we want? And I think we'll need a lot of imagination and to write a new story to create this new future that we want. And it will take a lot of persuasion, but real dialogue with people who don't necessarily believe or are scared of of what might be coming. So I don't know if that's an answer to your question, but thank you.
Yeah, I know it does. I mean, there's no such thing as a right or wrong answer. I mean, I've been doing a lot of reflection, and my headspace is all over the place around what do we learn from this, and what do we take, how we're moving forward. And listening to you and Jeff, Rabbi Newman and others, it helps formulate, you know, our own sense of what we need to do to continue that good work. So I suppose my next question is a bit more practical, Olivia. You're very much involved in Buddhist Action Month, and this campaign is being held right in the middle of the pandemic. So can you tell us a little bit more about Buddhist Action Month, what takes place, what are the type of activities, and how is this month, how do you think it can be used as a catalyst for change for a sustainable future?
Yes, thank you. So first of all, my debt of gratitude to the people who've gone before me, who've created Buddhist Action Month, because again, like I said, I'm very new to this. So Buddhist Action Month is always in June, and historically, so it is part of the network of Buddhist organizations, NBO, and it's an initiative for intra-Buddhist collaboration. And it's been going since 2012 to build Buddhist engagement and action. Because as Buddhists, we have the reputation of sitting on our cushions or being meditators, rather than people who want to take action and be engaged in society. So this is a Western perception in particular. In the East, in Asia, there is a lot of engaged Buddhism. It was inspired by Mitzvah Day, like Jeffrey said, so great debt of gratitude to our Jewish community as well. And originally it was supposed to be one day, but everybody then decided to make it a month, to give it a bit more time and weight. And now in a way it's becoming more of an ongoing thing. So different communities, the Triratna community, for instance, have decided to do it as all year round. And we are, as Buddhists, taking action all the year round, you know, but Buddhist Action Month is a moment to really to push that agenda. And for the last 3 years, it's been dedicated to the climate in particular. Whereas in general, it's been about social engagement. And I want to just say thanks to Caspar Thompson, who's created the resources of Buddhist Action Month. And there's some wonderful resources. If anybody wants to look them up, please do. So this year, as we all know, during COVID, it's much more difficult for communities, Buddhist communities, to take on community action, which has been the case in the past, where people have collectively taken action, planted trees, worked with woodland trusts, worked with river cleaning, cleanup events, and various other things. And so this year in particular, I think it's a moment of an opportunity for reflection, a bit what I've just said earlier on. And we held a meeting, a seminar or a webinar at the beginning of this month in order to launch it and to sort of start looking at what a post-COVID era might look like, and what climate action in a post-COVID era, if it's ever post-COVID, may be, and how we can do that, and to look at the system change that needs to happen as well, the things that deep down need to change. So I think this month there are a lot of talks and seminars that are being organized by all the different communities, and I feel personally that it's a period of reflection and learning and self-educating and dialogue and widening our community. And also at the end of the month, we have an event, which is not a Buddhist event, it's a interfaith event organized by the Climate Coalition, which is, you may all know about it already, but I'll just mention it anyway. It's a virtual lobby, it's a virtual campaign. The time is now. So we can't take to the streets, but what we can do is invite our MPs to discuss climate and ecological change with them, and to put it on the agenda that now that the government is trying to work out where to put finances in order to regenerate our economy and our societies, that equity and sustainability and renewables, renewable energy, and all these things are paramount. You know, that they need to be taken to look at the whole system, not to just put a big plaster on certain parts of our economy that we just want to feel we need to boost again, you know, yet again, transport and fossil fuels and airlines and things like that. So I think I want to see that as a sort of a launch, you know, that's in a way the sort of then launch into the next part of the action, which I would see going towards COP26, which is in November 2021 now. So that a month can become a year, and more than a year, 18 months of, it can be the springboard for a year of real interfaith collaboration. So does that give you enough about Buddhist Climate Action Month?
No, that gives me so much. I really liked where you gave credit to Mitzvah Day, and it's a beautiful example of faiths working together and sharing the success with each other and saying, look, we have so much we can learn from each other, and not competing with each other as quite often we see. I'm going to ask you to tell us a little bit about, you spoke about obviously the lobbying event, but I know you're also working on putting together some of the other smaller minority faiths and the capacity building program and lessons learned. And if you can just talk a little bit about what you're doing with other faith groups, because I would say that's part of your Buddhist faith too, to work with others, bring people together, and you've been very instrumental in that. And what are the benefits of bringing these groups together, and what challenges everybody's facing, as well as successes?
Well, again, first of all, I didn't bring them all together. I'm very much, this is inspired by Faith for the Climate, and also an organisation called Religions for Peace UK, who contacted Faith for the Climate to see how they could best support climate action. And I think in discussion together, all of you, and I wasn't even part of this, decided that it would be really to build capacity for the what are called the minority faiths. So in this case, that's the Sikh community, the Hindu community, the Muslim community, and the Buddhist community. So we've had a capacity building working group, and we've all set up our own version. So that's where the EcoDharma network came from. And the EcoDharma network is now part of the Network for Buddhist Organizations, and which is, BAM is part of that. So we work closely, where we are the same people really. But we want more people to join, as many as possible. And what has been wonderful is having this exchange with all the other communities and learning from each other. So all of us have been building our capacity. And I know, again, in the Buddhist community, I want to just acknowledge that a lot of action has been going on. There are a lot of organizations. There's XR Buddhists, like there are XR Jews. There's also dance, the Dharma Action Network for Engaged Climate Action. And so sorry, my phone's working. So a lot of action is already happening, public action. And I know a lot of communities are taking action in their own areas as well. But I think our collective communities can, one, learn from each other and help each other build what we can learn also from the bigger communities. So the church communities have already got a whole history and years of working on climate. They have organizations set up to deal with these things. They have experience, they've got expertise, they have people who are professionally engaged to do it. We're all volunteers. We're all learning on the job. We all have a passion to transform the mess that we're creating, but also really mainly to transform our own understanding and knowledge, and to have dialogue with all our communities. And so what we really are trying to do is to learn from what has already happened. So we're not just reinventing the wheel, and to bring together the people that we connect with. Because I think that's one great thing that faith communities can do. We have community, we have constituents, we have people we can address and talk to, and we also have that real understanding of working together for a common purpose. And it's wonderful to feel that common purpose, not just to be within one's own faith community, but to be a wider thing. And of course, you know, particularly also with Extinction Rebellion, that's not just faith communities, that's the wider public, and not everybody belongs to, you know, or officially it wants to align themselves with a faith, like Jeffrey has already said. But I think, well, certainly everybody here, but I would say everybody wants to live a healthy life, to be able to have a healthy and happy future for their children, their grandchildren, their families, the people that we know. And like again, Cameron said, we all breathe the same air, we all eat the same food, we are all together. And I think that's one thing that COVID has also brought out, this collective spirit of what happens when we really connect with our friends, our neighbors. We have to rely on each other. You know, if you're ill, you have to rely on somebody else to go shopping for you. These kind of things. And I would say that a lot of people have gained so much from that. And I've gained so much and learnt so much from my Sikh and Hindu and Muslim friends. And Cameron, thank you very much because you are a great supporter of this, and so is Lizzie, Nelson, and Giles and Shannon. I'm just, as I said, the new girl who's sort of come in, and I'm always very passionate about trying to take action and doing things together. So I think that's why I keep volunteering for various things. But thank you.
Okay, thanks, Olivia. I just want to answer a point that Rabbi Newman put on the chat box. As part of our moving forward, the Jewish community will be very much involved in the next phase of the Faith for the Climate and the Religion for Peace capacity building. So I can assure you that will definitely be happening. Okay, that's enough of my questions for now. So it's time now to bring in our audience, and we've had a number of questions, and so that have been sent to us, and I want to put them to Rabbi Newman and to Olivia. And so the first question, I suppose, is more to Rabbi Newman, which is around, you know, it's from John Senior, who's asking, is it time for groups to engage as stakeholder groups in constructive dialogue with local county councils? And I suppose there's a follow-up question from Sarah Fraser. So engaging councils and businesses, it's, you know, it's always asking difficult questions. What needs to thrive? What needs to change? Rabbi Newman?
Jeff, you're muted.
Thank you. I said it's hard work is the first thing to say. We have a Barnet Climate Action Group, which I co-chair with the local rector of one of the churches. We were just getting into some sort of a stride when COVID hit, and it's not been easy to move forward with that. And oddly, it's an area that does link, I think, with what has been said before. There's a Barnet Multi-Faith Forum, but the Multi-Faith Forum is so keen on trying to present, which is apparently covenanted with the local council, Barnet. It doesn't want to disturb its comfortable arrangement with the council by questioning anything that the council does. It's strictly non-political. So we're having to build up connections beyond the Multi-Faith Forum. So I think that's, in a way, exactly goes back to an earlier comment that Kamran made about the faiths and about just how courageous they are. That's one half of it. The second is absolutely also collaboration is the 17th goal of the Sustainable Development Goals. It is central. Unless we collaborate, and that includes business, government, media, we're not going to get anywhere. But trying to build those networks is very time consuming. And all of us find the issue of time and how to use our time in service. I think I shall use my time in this moment to say that there is a webinar that Paula, if she's still on this call, will perhaps give a link to with the Indigenous people that you're all welcome to, because one of the most important learnings that I've had over the last year to 18 months has been with Indigenous people. I think we've got an enormous amount to gain from their generosity, their forgiveness, and do join us on the webinar.
Thank you, Jeff. Okay, my next question is for Olivia, and I suppose this is based on a question, on a discussion myself and Olivia were having the other day on personal change and making change within yourself. So there's been a question from Pam Warner, who's asking that, do you think eating less meat or becoming a vegetarian is something you are prepared to do in order to help the environment? And I suppose here there's a question between individual change and systemic change. So I just want to get Olivia's perspective on that.
Thank you. And I also saw that she wrote a question about ecocide, I think, as a human right, and you know, as one of the, I can't quite see it now, ecocide law. Do you? Yeah. Okay. So first of all, as obviously as Buddhists, I didn't mention this earlier, but we believe absolutely in the interconnection of everything and every living thing, and even in, you know, and that, so we're not separate from the world in any way, although we have this illusion of being separate. So the difficulty is how to get to that place that we understand this complete interconnection. So I know that in Asia, sometimes there have been laws about making, no, not laws, but blessing trees in order to save them. Because if a priest blesses a tree, then it is blessed. And so priests have used that they can bless nature as well as people. And that means that the nature doesn't get, so it's saving those trees. There's something about us understanding this complete interconnection of when we take down a tree, that we are taking down a life, and a very interconnected and diverse aspect of life, which we are learning more and more about. And that's again the way I'm trying to educate myself about the importance of, you know, of how deeply interconnected life is, and the roots of trees. But going back to the question about a vegetarian diet, yes, absolutely. There's a huge amount that we can do personally, and that would be my starting point always, is what can I do personally? Can I eat less meat? Can I eat no meat? Can I not drive a car, or can I drive it very little? Can I have you know, all these things? Can I have solar panels? Can I generate my own energy? So all the things we can personally do, but that's not enough. It's a starting point, and it's very important, and we can influence our friends and family by having those conversations as well, and not to underestimate our impact, I think, in that respect. But it's not enough. We also have to work on a systemic level. So I think, yes, it's definitely something we can do and should be doing. And again, that means different things for different people, you know, so even just eating meat only once or twice a week, if you've been eating it every day, is better than not, you know, you don't necessarily have to go cold turkey. But then for some of us, if we're used to not eating meat, then we can think about the sustainable aspects of our food. I mean, there are so many things we can do, and sometimes that can be daunting and overwhelming. But every little thing that we do contributes to change.
Thank you, Olivia. I'd like to ask Rabbi Newman the same question on ecocide, on what because it's a really interesting thought. So, Rabbi Newman, do you take a position on having an international law or a code of conduct or something around ecocide along the same sort of lines of genocide? Do you think an international law can protect the earth? Is it enforceable? Should there be a charter of some sort?
I think it is inevitable. I think it's going to happen. And I wouldn't be surprised if it happens even, I wouldn't be surprised if even it might happen in my lifetime. That might be a surprising answer. Surprises me. Wouldn't it be lovely?
Well, I definitely hope it does, and I really hope to see it definitely in our lifetime, and I hope that happens. Okay, so we're now coming towards the end of our webinar. We could talk about these issues all day, and we can listen to Olivia and Rabbi Newman. We could just sit here and listen to them. It's like music to our ears. But unfortunately, we don't have time, so we have to come to an end. So I suppose my message to everybody else before we end is we will continue these series of webinars every month. We haven't set a full date, but we will finalize it in the next few days. Our next webinar will be around the theme of Think Global, Act Local. Do again look out for our tweets, emails on our website, etc. I'd like to, and also if any people have anything they think we should particularly speak about, anything you'd like us to have a webinar on, please do send in your suggestions to our coordinator picks them up, and he can, Shannon, who's sitting in, who's listening to us, he'll pick them up and we can start planning for them. Our next webinar will have some bishops on board. I think we have 2 bishops confirmed. We have a Sikh leader, so we'll have a diverse range of speakers. And so before I finish, I just want to again go back to our speakers, give you a minute and a half to just give some final reflections and some take-home message of what you want people to go away to think about. So I'll start with you, Rabbi Newman.
These webinars, and of course I've been on more Zoom calls than I've ever imagined in the last 2.5 months, and they've learnt a bit of the technology, not much, are very intensive. If one looks at the chat, there is so much there. And in a way, I think you get more done in an hour webinar, especially if you add in traveling time, than we do by having the meetings. But of course, it is, I'm not suggesting that there aren't real other values in being together. There are. I'm a great one for eating and drinking as well, and hugging, all of those aspects. I think that I would like, however, to finish with reading the little card that I sent up earlier, which does come from XR, because it's called the Solemn Intention Statement. Let's take a moment, this moment, to consider why we are here. Let's remember our love for this beautiful planet that feeds, nourishes, and sustains us. Let's remember our love for the whole of humanity in all corners of the world. Let's recollect our sincere desire to protect all this for ourselves, for all living beings, and for generations to come. As we act today, may we find the courage to bring a sense of peace, love, and appreciation to everyone we encounter, to every word we speak, and to every action we make. We are here for all of us.
Thank you, Rabbi Newman. And Olivia, if I could ask for your words of and reflections of wisdom.
Oh, that was so beautiful, Jeff. I don't feel I could say anything really. Mine are, these are slightly borrowed from The Future We Choose, which I really recommend if you haven't read it. And it's to let go of the old world and create a vision for the future, and and to use our imagination for that. And I think as a process of that, to reform the tenets of my heart, for me to transform my disbelief that we can have a better future, and also to engage in politics. So get involved with Climate Coalition, get involved with your local MP, get involved with anything. But I think all of these is our personal decision, isn't it, what we want to do? But just doing one thing will make a difference.
Thank you. And finally, I'd like to end with this quote from G. Nelson, who's a US senator. The ultimate test of man's conscience may be his willingness to sacrifice something today for future generations whose words of thanks will not be heard. Thank you, everyone. The webinar is now over. Please be safe and God bless you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kamran, as well. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, everyone, it's now over. Please feel free to log out, leave the meeting. If I can ask all